From coronations and christenings to trooping the colour, the British royal family have a reputation for celebrating in style.
Only the British can do it this way, and I'm proud to be British.
I think it's what this country's all about. We're great at pageantry and we've got to enjoy it.
Many royal occasions come with centuries of convention and strict guidelines to follow.
All kinds of rituals, traditions, precedents.
But there's always room for the personal touch.
You can take it from me that the Queen has the quality of tolerance and abundance.
And whenever Britain's first family do throw a party, the world watches.
There is a global appetite for the pomp and the pageantry that the royals do, quite simply, better than anyone else.
This is the Royal Guide to Stately Celebrations and How to Make Them Majestic. The royals know how to celebrate. From January to December, the royal diary is full to overflowing. But when you're in the line of succession, there are traditions to uphold and rules to follow. So, how do the royal family mark the big occasions on the calendar?
The royals do like to celebrate, and the Queen enjoys a party. The Queen has said during her reign, "I have to be seen to be believed." And I think what she has done is she's used occasions to be seen by her public. So I think there is a sense that when the royals choose to celebrate, it does become a national moment for celebration.
The most majestic celebration of them all is one only a few of us have witnessed. The crowning glory, the coronation.
The coronation is by far and away the most important, most ritualistic ceremony in the life of any sovereign.
Taking place at Westminster Abbey, all kinds of rituals, traditions, precedents have seen monarchs crowned over the ages, dating back to before William the Conqueror in 1066.
In 1937, just months after her uncle's abdication, the then 11-year-old Princess Elizabeth watched on as her father was crowned King George VI. 16 years later, after her father's sudden death, it was her turn.
Contrary to what a lot of people believe, our Queen became monarch the moment her father died, which was on the 6th of February 1952. Her coronation did not take place until the 2nd of June the following year, 1953, but she was already Queen. She was 27, her coronation, a young woman, but one already dedicated to the role. The crowning is the monarch's contract between the crown and the people, between the crown and the church.
At the heart of the coronation is the anointing, where the monarch has oil, holy oil, placed upon them. And the idea is at that point that God sanctifies them and they become other, really, set above us mere mortals. So there is this sense of being divinely sanctioned, divinely appointed, divinely blessed. And so special is that moment that traditionally it would be screened off so those that were gathered in the abbey wouldn't see it.
Despite that customary discretion, there were more eyes on Elizabeth in 1953 than at any previous coronation. Until then, only a select few were able to witness the event. This time, it was seen on television sets around the globe.
Prince Philip, in fact, was one of the architects behind the plan to televise the coronation. And at the time, it was quite controversial because it was seen as so special that would it kind of downplay it and become sort of a popular soap opera occasion. And it was really the thing that marked the birth of television. So many people went and got television sets in order to watch the coronation.
The coronation was viewed by 27 million people in the United Kingdom, but we did more than just watch it on TV. Still recovering from the aftermath of the Second World War, Britain finally had something to celebrate. The entire country hung out the bunting and got ready to party.
Coronation fever got hold of everybody, really. Stands had been built along the processional route for people to buy tickets and take their places to watch the processions and to be a part of it.
I'm old enough to remember the coronation of 1953 and the procession through the streets of London. Hundreds of thousands of people turn out. The weather on Coronation Day was awful. But yes, we were there. We watched it. And it was terrific. There was such a buzz. There was such excitement.
After the public fanfare, the Queen hosted a private dinner with guests from around the globe. A menu was created just for the occasion.
There were all sorts of, coronation trifles, coronation puddings, and, we know it so well even today, coronation chicken.
An instant hit at the time, it has recently lost some of its glamour. But the royals still love it, and it's a favourite with former royal chef Des Sweeney. The perfect dish for a royal shindig, it can be whipped up in minutes on an almost industrial scale.
It's actually very straightforward. So poach a couple of chicken breasts, season those with some nice curry powder, which I done yesterday. Salt, pepper, some mayonnaise. And that's it, that's coronation chicken. So that can be used in a salad, which often used to be the case, in a canapé, or in a sandwich selection for the afternoon tea.
This simplicity means that, although it was originally served in a sumptuous banquet hall, it has since become an al fresco favourite of the royal family.
When they was at Balmoral, they'd have a picnic outside, so this would always go out. Very popular. It's very easy to eat when you're sitting on the back of a Land Rover.
From the banquet to the picnic blanket, a royal classic. It may have been a while since we've had a coronation to commemorate, but there is no shortage of heirs waiting in the wings. And the arrival of each is a cause for celebration.
The announcement of a royal baby is always quite a big deal, and it's a huge deal when it happens to be an heir. It's a moment to celebrate and recognise the continuity of the monarchy.
For most new royal arrivals today, their life of pomp and pageantry begins at the Lindo wing of St Mary's Hospital in Paddington, London. Giving birth here is as fresh as the newborns in their royal mother's arms. Traditionally, royal births took place at home. Queen Victoria was born in the dining room of Kensington Palace, the Queen at her maternal grandparents' home in London, and she had her own children at Buckingham Palace and Clarence House.
The idea of a hospital birth is a relatively new phenomenon. That moment of presenting their baby to the world, and that has become a tradition for the royal family, and is in quite a contrast to the Queen and the births of her children, which were much more private affairs.
Princess Anne set the trend. She was the first to choose a Lindo wing, where she gave birth to her son Peter in 1977 and her daughter Zara in 1981.
Before leaving, the princess stopped to thank the midwives and staff. Captain Phillips, hidden behind the nurses, leant forward and gave his daughter a rather bemused smile.
And once Anne had paved the way, Diana cemented the tradition in 1982. William was the first heir to the throne to be presented on the now famous steps.
Have much longer to wait. Less than 2 days after arriving here, Prince, Princess and baby Prince emerged to the cheers of the crowd. They'd said thank you to the staff with photographs of themselves. The Prince organised his wife and son into the car and then, beaming proudly, set off for home.
The president set. William found himself back on those same steps 31 years later. Along with his wife Catherine, he presented their firstborn son, Prince George, third in line to the throne. Once a new addition to the royal household has been officially announced, it's time to plan for the child's first big event, the christening.
Given that the Queen is head of the Church of England and the royal family therefore are a Christian family, christenings are really important. They're the first rite of passage and the first kind of official outing of any new royal baby. Traditionally, they're a private family affair. More recently, they've become a little bit more public, although they're not televised.
However, there is no set tradition as to where a royal offspring should be christened.
They took place in private chapels, Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, Sandringham, or in the music room at Buckingham Palace, which is where the Queen was christened.
And in 2013, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge had baby George christened at the Chapel Royal at St James's Palace, which had been the resting place of his grandmother, Princess Diana, before her funeral in 1997. Even though the locations have varied, there are two constants that have been around since the 1840s and the christenings of Queen Victoria's children.
The Lily font is the traditional royal christening font that's normally kept in the Tower of London and then is moved to the christening venue. It's gilded gold, it's a very special, ornate object. And it's filled with the christening water, and traditionally that water came from the River Jordan.
And there's something else that's been part of the royal christenings for nearly 2 centuries.
The Honiton robe is a family christening gown that was made for Queen Victoria's eldest daughter, Victoria, in 1840. And it passed down through generations of royal children. 62 royal children wore it over 163 years, and the last one to wear it was Louise, the eldest daughter of Prince Edward, at which point it started to fall into a state of disrepair.
But not to worry, new arrivals are still able to don the traditional royal threads on their special day.
The Queen decided that she would get a replica made from her dressmaker Angela Kelly, and it's been worn ever since. So it's a really important symbol of the royal family.
The young royals have been known to be environmentally conscious, but even so, there is some impressive recycling. And it doesn't stop there.
One of the traditions that goes alongside a royal christening is that the top layer of the wedding cake is never eaten on the day of the wedding. It is put aside and carefully stored so that it can be brought out and served and eaten on the christening.
Traditionally, the top tier, or a few top tiers, if it is multiple, are kept for a future christening.
Cake maker to the royals, Fiona Cairns, created William and Kate's wedding cake in 2011.
We were involved with the christenings of all of the 3 children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis.
And Fiona's top tip, if you wish to rule out the top tiers at your very own regal christening.
Fruitcake does keep a long time. Often, if I'm asked, I will say it's quite a good idea to freeze a fruitcake, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. But it won't keep for years and years and years.
It seems the only thing new at a royal christening is the little one themselves. They will have their work cut out for them in the years ahead. For all members of the royal family, there's a whole diary of celebrations to attend, from January right the way through to December. Throughout the year, the royal calendar is bursting with all kinds of events, ceremonies, and celebrations to attend. And it all kicks off in January as we welcome in the new year with investitures.
Every year, there's the New Year's honours and the birthday honours list. And this is where people are nominated for knighthoods, damehoods, all the way down to OBE, CBE, so on and so forth, for all sorts of reasons, charitable, cultural, for the roles that they've played within their own particular fields.
It's purely ceremonial today, but this ancient tradition stretches back to the Normans, when a knighthood came with a few responsibilities.
Knighting and the knights are an old chivalric tradition that the monarch used to create knights really for religious service in particular, or charitable service. So going back to the time of the Crusades, knights would protect pilgrims going to the Holy Land. And over the centuries, they became a mark of royal favour.
Honours were traditionally reserved for the aristocracy and high-ranking military, but the Queen's grandfather, George V, changed all that and created the Order of the British Empire to reward civilians who had done their bit in World War I. The Queen has continued this tradition, and today, lists of MBEs, OBEs, and other awards are announced twice a year for personal bravery, outstanding achievements, and services to the realm, including broadcasts, sport, and music.
Fresh from an audience with the Queen, they hold medals, indicating they have been made members of the most excellent order of the British Empire.
The most famous of the honours is still a knighthood. For this, the recipient kneels on an investiture stool.
The Queen makes knights by the sword which she inherited from her father. She carries out investitures, carrying on the traditional ceremonial practice of age-old monarchs. She would daub the knight on his shoulder with the sword.
Once given the honour, the recipient can use the title Sir or Dame, like lockdown hero Captain Sir Tom Moore, knighted in 2020.
Never, ever did I imagine that I should get so close to the Queen and have such a kind message from her. That was really outstanding. It really was truly outstanding.
One person who knows what it's like to be on the receiving end of an investiture is model and actress Eunice Olumide. She was awarded an MBE by Prince Charles in 2017.
The best thing was going to Buckingham Palace and getting to take my mum and my family, which was pretty awesome. It is absolutely mind-blowing, and you kind of go through these, of course, very opulent, very ostentatious, amazing doors, and you go inside and you're there with the other delegates, and then there's this guy who comes in and he kind of tells you, okay, this is what you have to do when you go into the room. This is how you have to walk, and this is how you have to kind of curtsy and stuff.
Former royal butler Grant Harold has helped many a guest make a good first impression when coming face to face with royalty. Here's his advice on how to perfect the bow and curtsy for that once-in-a-lifetime moment.
If you watch any kind of old movies, you'll see that the gentlemen used to do a bow from the waist and the ladies would do the curtsy. And when it comes to the royal family, for a man, he wouldn't do a bow from the waist any longer because that's classed as a theatrical bow, which you see performers do. But if I met a royal and I was going to acknowledge them, all I do is my hands go to the side, feet together, and just nod my head, as simple as that. I think if you were to suddenly kind of do a theatrical bow, it can be a little bit much, can't it? For a lady, it's a little bit more tricky because obviously it comes down to balance. So I have said to ladies that if you're uncomfortable doing a curtsy, of course you can do the neck bow. But if you want to try the curtsy, then it's hands to the side, right foot behind the left. If that is your stronger leg, obviously depends on what you're comfortable with. And then You do a little bob down and back up. That is as much as that. What you don't do is don't try to do this, because you can look like a Boeing 747. And the other thing that can go wrong is if you try to go too low, you could end up going right down and you're not going to come back up.
So after a practice in private, it's time for the real thing.
Then, of course, you've basically got to do the most grand catwalk you've ever seen. And if you make it to the end of the catwalk without tripping up, then you've got to negotiate the half curtsy as well as the two-step forward and back. I was like a bit unsure when I was doing it, if I was doing it right and how it looked, but my mum said I did a good job.
After the New Year's honours, as winter turns to spring, the senior royals are kept busy with plenty of events to attend. The next big one on the royal calendar is Holy Week and Easter. At a special service on Maundy Thursday, the day before Good Friday, the Queen distributes special coins, known as Maundy money, to pensioners. It's a symbol of generosity from the monarch to the people, and developed from a tradition in the Middle Ages of the king washing the feet of beggars, just as Jesus did. By the 18th century, feet washing had been replaced with cash. The Easter weekend itself is spent at Windsor with family, and the Queen attends a service at St George's Chapel on Easter Sunday. In May, it's time for the monarch to don the official threads for the next big event. It's the state opening of Parliament. The Queen famously stays neutral when it comes to politics. However, as head of state, it's her job to attend the ceremonial opening of Parliament at Westminster, and it calls for just as much fancy dress and fancy footwork as you might imagine.
The State Open of Parliament is the official beginning of the parliamentary year. It's when the monarch arrives to open Parliament and deliver the speech, the Queen's speech. It's setting out the government's business for the year.
The day is one of the few occasions for which the state crown is removed from the Tower of London. The Queen enters the Houses of Parliament by the sovereign's entrance and the royal staircase. Tradition dictates that this is the only route the Queen is allowed to use to enter the House of Lords.
She goes into the robing room to put on her robes, processes to the House of Lords, and then her representative in the House of Lords, Black Rod, goes to the Commons and summons it to attend the Queen in the House of Lords. But dating back to the Civil War, the battle between the monarchy and Parliament during the reign of Charles I, as a symbol of the Commons' independence from the monarchy now, when Black Rod knocks on the door of the Commons, the door is sort of shut in his face.
Close the door.
And on the third time, eventually, the Commons then process to the Lords.
Once everyone has assembled, the Queen delivers the Queen's speech, setting out the government's business for the year ahead.
Of course, it's a speech that's been written by the government and then read out by the monarch, so it's not her words.
This is my government's second legislative programme. Like the first, it will focus upon the modernisation of the country, its institutions, its public services, and its economy.
It's important to open Parliament. It's very much part of the active political year now, but it's based on traditions that date back over the centuries.
With Parliament up and running, the royal household turns to the next major event in the calendar, the second Saturday in June, the Queen's birthday. Well, one of them.
The Queen, of course, celebrates her birthday twice in the year. She celebrates her birthday on the 21st of April, which is the actual date of her birth, but she also celebrates it on a national scale.
Having an official birthday for the reigning monarch dates back to 1748, when George II decided he didn't like having a birthday in cold, damp November. In the way that only a monarch can, he chose to have another birthday in the summer. So for the past 270 years, all British sovereigns have celebrated their official birthday in June, and the occasion is marked by a ceremony, the grandest of them all, Trooping the Colour.
It officially celebrates the birthday of the monarch, and it really is the most magnificent military spectacle.
It grew out of a sense of a military parade, Trooping the Colour, the military colours. It's a march past of all the military bands, military guards.
During the procession, the regimental flag or colour is paraded down the ranks of its troops. This is a tradition that dates back to the 17th century, when the colours were trooped in front of soldiers in battle every day to ensure each one could recognise the flag of his own regiment.
Traditionally, the Queen has ridden out to inspect the troops on horseback, but for the last few years, she's arrived by carriage.
Taking place right on the doorstep of Buckingham Palace on Horse Guards Parade, thousands come to watch the Queen receive a royal salute and then enjoy the spectacle as marching bands parade around the palace and the Mall.
It's a display of military pomp and pageantry, but it's also an occasion when the royals get together as a family.
And it's a big ceremonial occasion which concludes with an RAF fly-past as the royal family gather on the balcony at Buckingham Palace.
For a new royal, this balcony appearance often marks their first step onto the public stage. And for royal observers, the balcony always reveals some interesting moments.
You want to be seeing the interaction between the royals. There's kind of like a study of the body language on the balcony as well, who's talking to whom. The best balcony photographs have been taken, particularly of the late Duke of Edinburgh, making other members of the family laugh and people kind of roaring with laughter.
Trooping the Colour marks the midpoint of the royal year, but there are plenty more celebrations still to come. June can be a busy month. This is the time of year the royal household marks any significant anniversaries of the Queen's coronation, with one of the biggest celebrations in the regal calendar, the Royal Jubilee.
Now, Jubilee is a moment for the nation collectively to come together and to reflect on the reign of the monarch. Queen Victoria was very famous for her jubilees.
Queen Victoria spent almost 64 years on the throne. To mark 50 years, her Golden Jubilee, she held a royal banquet at Buckingham Palace, followed by a procession through London, which was reported to stretch to the limit of sight in both directions. She then became the first British monarch in history to celebrate 60 years, a Diamond Jubilee. But it's our very own Queen Elizabeth II who will be forever known for her Jubilee celebrations.
Our Queen has achieved some very particular milestones: Silver Jubilee, Golden Jubilee, Diamond Jubilee, Sapphire Jubilee, now Platinum Jubilee with 70 years on the throne. She's the longest reigned monarch in British history, having superseded her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria. So these are all milestones in the Queen's life that are significant and important, but the very fact that she's reached a Platinum Jubilee is quite special, because this absolutely has never happened before.
The Queen's Jubilees live long in the memory.
I remember her Golden Jubilee very clearly, and I remember it coming at a time when the royal family had been through great difficulty. This was in 2002, so only 5 years after the death of Princess Diana, when certainly I think the idea of the nation getting behind and celebrating the royal family wasn't necessarily a given. But in fact, the crowds did turn out. They were there to support the Queen. There was a lot of love, a lot of loyalty, and a sense of celebration for this monarch as she celebrated her Golden Jubilee.
10 years later, it was bigger and better.
That celebration back in 2012 was a very, very special moment for the country. It was a 4-day celebration. Hundreds of thousands of people descended to London. This was a pageant of thousands of vessels sailing down the River Thames with the Queen aboard the Spirit of Chartwell with her family. And Britain hadn't seen a celebration like this for many hundreds of years.
Jubilee events are just the beginning. Like the rest of us, the royals make the most of the summer months. In July, the Queen has a jam-packed calendar as she sets out to entertain around 30,000 guests over several days at both Buckingham Palace and Holyrood House in Edinburgh. At the garden parties, every summer since the 60s, the 1860s in this case, the monarch has invited guests to royal garden parties.
These are a really important occasion for her. It is a moment for her to meet members of the public, just regular members of the public whose service or contribution to their community the Queen wants to recognise. And the privilege, really, of being invited to Buckingham Palace to take tea with the Queen and nibble on cucumber sandwiches is a really special occasion for most people. And I think if you ever had the privilege of being invited to a Buckingham Palace garden party, it's certainly something that you will always remember.
The guests gather on the lawn, whatever the weather, and when the band strikes up the national anthem, the Queen makes her entrance.
It's a really wonderful atmosphere. There's a great sense of expectation, of excitement before the members of the royal family appear, and as they walk down the steps from the palace to go and greet guests on the lawn. It's a really special moment, and it's not often that you get to meet the Queen. It's not often that you get to have, in some cases, a conversation with the Queen.
There's no casual mingling, though. The Queen has a carefully choreographed route through the garden to ensure she gets to speak to as many of her guests as possible. There are up to 8,000 at each event, all waiting in line for a chinwag. In the 1860s, Queen Victoria considered the garden parties to be exclusive events, open only to members of the upper classes. This changed in 1945, when the Queen's father, King George VI, invited servicemen and women after the Second World War. Nowadays, this is an invite that any one of us could get our hands on, so it's essential to know how to make a good first impression.
I always said people never offer a hand to a member of the royal family. They've got to offer their hand first, and then you've then got to make sure you do the right kind of handshake. Fully open, fingers and thumb open. Then you wrap your fingers round their hand, obviously, but not too tight, because you don't want to come across as overpowering, or you're not trying to arm wrestle the royal, God forbid. And at the same time, you don't want it to be too limp, as if you can't be bothered. And then my favourite part is it's 2 to 3 pumps. So that's where you go 1, 2, 3 marks, and then your hand returns to the side. What you've got to remember is, out of the excitement and the nerves, don't keep shaking the hand. You're meeting a member of the royal family, you're not pumping up a bicycle tyre.
So don't overpump and don't overdress.
Just wear what the dress code says. It's not the time for high fashion. It's not the time to start a new trend. If you do not look the part, you won't feel the part, and that will affect your general behaviour and confidence.
Perhaps you wouldn't wear skyscraper heels because you'd just sink into the turf.
The solution? A wedged heel.
I think both Meghan and Kate have made wedges very popular amongst the younger royals. They are much more sensible on certain occasions, because otherwise you do sink into the ground.
For the men, it's all about what's on your arm.
Something that always amuses me with adult male members of the royal family or royal household, when they are in morning dress, not for weddings, but for garden parties sometimes, is that they've got an umbrella, very tightly furled umbrella. And that's sort of a class marker for royal household. It makes no sense, but if you want sense, I wouldn't necessarily deeply analyse royal protocol.
But surely carrying an umbrella at a British summer garden party isn't entirely in vain. When the summer comes to an end, so do the garden parties. And as the royals head into autumn, the official events come around less frequently, providing much-needed space in the calendar for royal tours and private family celebrations, such as the Queen and Prince Philip's wedding anniversary. On November the 20th, 2020, the couple celebrated their 73rd wedding anniversary. Sadly, it was to be their last. In 1997, Prince Philip revealed the secret of their long-lasting marriage.
The main lesson that we've learned is that tolerance is the one essential ingredient of any happy marriage. It may not be quite so important when things are going well, but it is absolutely vital when things get difficult. And you can take it from me that the Queen has the quality of tolerance and abundance.
Both parties brought something to the union, as the Queen revealed the following day.
He is someone who doesn't take easily to compliments, but he has quite simply been my strength and stay all these years. And I and his whole family, and this and many other countries, owe him a debt greater than he would ever claim, or we shall ever know.
As autumn slips into winter, attention turns to the final celebration in the calendar year, one of the most personal. Come December, it feels like the whole country gears up for the biggest celebration of the year, and the royal family are no exception. At Christmas.
Christmas is a huge thing for the royal family because, in a way, the Christmas that we have today is thanks to the Queen's ancestors, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert.
Many of the traditions which you associate with Christmas today actually go back to the royals, not least the Christmas tree, which was introduced by Queen Charlotte, George III's wife, who was German, at the beginning of the 19th century, and she decided that she wanted a Christmas tree. And that tradition, alongside others, was really embraced by Queen Victoria and Prince Albert in particular. And Prince Albert absolutely loved Christmas trees and would have them at the royal residences. And there's an engraving at the time which became quite famous, which shows Queen Victoria and Albert and their children decorating the Christmas tree.
When this engraving went public in 1848, it sparked a craze that's clogged up vacuum cleaners up and down the country ever since. Christmas trees are still the centerpiece of all the Christmas decorations across all the royal residences. A large tree is erected in Windsor Castle, and Nordmann firs are placed in the entrance to Buckingham Palace. The Queen hosts many Christmas events at the palace, which in 2019 included making Christmas pudding with Prince George.
The Queen really begins Christmas once she's thrown her Christmas party for her staff, which has always been at Buckingham Palace, and then she gets on the train from London to King's Lynn.
Every year, the Queen travels to spend Christmas at Sandringham, her private estate in Norfolk.
It's now become a bit of a Christmas tradition. She will not go on the royal train, she will go on the 1049 from King's Cross, and it's a marvellous thing. You're not going to be spending a lot of taxpayers' money, you're just going to be on the ordinary train, which is going to stop at Cambridge and various other interesting places across the fens on its way there. And yeah, they'll clear first class for her, and I think that's entirely reasonable.
And the rest of the family make their way to Norfolk too.
The Queen is very strict about Christmas. She likes all the family to be together.
Often, certain members of the family have to stay in some of the guest houses and the outhouses on the Sandringham estate because there's just not enough room in the main house. They arrive in a certain order, and that is an order of seniority. So the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall should be the last people to arrive. And then everyone is invited to join the Queen for a drink and to hang a decoration on the Christmas tree.
Like any family, each of the royals has their favourite tipple. Prince Charles reputedly likes a cherry brandy, while Harry and Wills drink the Sandringham cider, produced from an apple orchard planted by their great-grandfather, King George VI. The Queen, however, favours a Zaza, also known as a gin, and Dubonnet.
It's quite sweet, but it's quite refreshing, and it's quite a nice drink to have before your lunch or before your dinner. And basically, it's gin and Dubonnet, which is a fortified wine infused with herbs.
While the traditional recipe sees equal amounts of each ingredient, the Queen goes easy on the gin.
So it's 1/3 gin, 2/3 Dubonnet,
The finishing touch, an orange twist, or as Her Majesty prefers, a slice of lemon.
make sure there's no pips in the lemon,
And finally,
2 ice cubes, and then you're going to just give it a little stir, and there is a perfect gin and Dubonnet fit for royalty.
the festivities kick off with a Christmas Eve football match between the local village and royal staff.
For many years, William and Harry used to have a traditional game of football in the afternoon on Christmas Eve, just up the road at Castle Rising from Sandringham.
And football isn't the only unusual tradition the royals have on Christmas Eve.
There are some traditions that happen for royal Christmases that perhaps maybe we as members of the public don't follow. For example, they will open their gifts on Christmas Eve, which is more of a Germanic tradition, which of course goes back to some of the royal family's origins.
But what do you get for the royal who has almost everything?
They're not necessarily sort of priceless diamonds or beautiful necklaces, because, let's be honest, the royal family are very fortunate to have a lot of money, and if they did want to go and get something, they can. And so they use the Christmas present exchange almost as a bit of a competition as to who can give the tackiest or the funniest gift. Supposedly you've had William and Catherine many years ago gave Prince Harry a grow your own girlfriend kit when he was single. People give the Queen a Billy Bass fish that sits on a plaque where you press it and the fish sort of wobbles on the plaque and sings a song.
I think I read somewhere that Princess Diana apparently gave some really nice gift to somebody, and then she was given a tea towel or something, and that's when she realised that that part of it's more fun, is more humorous.
A royal Christmas Eve is a real family affair, a chance for everyone to let their hair down before the more formal duties on Christmas Day.
There's a local church just beside Sandringham, just across the lawn actually, from the back of the house. And the Queen is very strict about going to the church. That's when you see the royals greeting the well-wishers, and it's an opportunity for everyone to kind of wish them a Merry Christmas.
It's the perfect opportunity to get up close to your favourite royal.
It's all wrapped up. Yeah. Put the brake on.
Are they frozen up good?
But if you're keen to wish Prince Charles a happy Christmas, you better get in line. After church, it's back to Sandringham, where the royal chefs have been hard at work preparing the Christmas dinner, and what fancy delights await the royal family.
This might come as a shock to everybody. It's the same as everybody else's in the country. It's roast turkey with all the trimmings, and then, again, the same as everybody else in the evening, it's a cold buffet. No different to every house in the country.
At 3 p.m. on Christmas Day, around 6 million of us tune in to listen to the Queen.
The Queen's Christmas Day speech is really an opportunity for the nation to stop what they're doing on Christmas Day, which, as we all know, is always busy and hectic and food-filled.
The Queen first addressed the nation via radio broadcast in 1952, and then 5 years later made her debut on television. And at 3 p.m. in Sandringham, the scenes are similar to households across the country.
Those members of the royal family who are spending Christmas with the Queen, they will then sit down after lunch and watch Her Majesty's speech. And I dare say the same is true for those members of the royal family who are not sharing in the Christmas celebrations at Sandringham too.
With that, the day draws to a close, and the family relax with some charades.
It's probably hard for most people to imagine that it really is just like a big family Christmas, but it really is, just on a much more formal scale, with a lot more food, a lot more outfit changes.
So as long as you're willing to open presents in formal evening wear instead of your PJs, you too can Christmas like the royals. From January to December, the royal family's calendar is full of ceremonies, services, parades and pageantry, following traditions both ancient and modern. Few of us could imagine celebrating with such pomp and circumstance, from golden christening fonts to birthday parades and huge house parties. But strip away the splendour and the Windsors don't seem so different to the rest of us. It's all about spending quality time with your family, enjoying humble food, and showing each other some respect. And adopting just some of their customs will have us all celebrating with a little royal flair. Royal weddings. Lavish, extravagant, romantic.
Royal weddings are a big deal. They are the fairy tale element to the royal family.
Filled with countless traditions, started by the original trailblazing bride, Queen Victoria.
Queen Victoria broke the mould by being the first royal to marry in white.
Now, the young royals are starting a whole new set of wedding trends fit for a modern monarchy.
We see Princess Eugenie wearing these very ostentatious hats, which are really out there. And it really gives the opportunity to all of us to step a little bit more out of the box.
This is your guide to weddings and how to waltz down the aisle like royalty. A wedding is a momentous occasion in any family's life. A once-in-a-lifetime day filled with love, laughter and celebration. But when you're part of Britain's royal family, it's on a scale unlike any other. And it's going to take more than a few glasses of champagne and a quick dash down the aisle to start a life of wedded bliss in style. Every detail will be dissected by an audience around the globe.
The royal weddings are representing Britain, and Britain as it is in that moment. And so we have to get it right because billions of people are going to be watching. And this is great PR for Britain.
They are moments where the nation's bond with the monarchy is reinforced and energised.
We want to get behind them as a nation, a moment of hope, a moment to come together as a nation and to celebrate.
But before you can have a royal wedding, you need a royal engagement. For Britain's first family, popping the question comes with a set of protocols. Rules that date back to George III and the Royal Marriages Act of 1772.
Some of his brothers were getting married to people that he wasn't overly comfortable having in the family. And so George III put in a series of rules and laws that meant that sort of a handful of people at the top of the tree of the order of succession would have to ask permission from the monarch in order to get married. That rule still exists to this day.
Historically, these marriages were geopolitical tools used to cement alliances, broker treaties, and end wars.
So if we think of someone like Catherine of Aragon, she married Prince Henry, later Henry VIII. But the point of Catherine of Aragon was to create an important Spanish alliance between England and Spain. So ultimately, royal marriages really were all about foreign and dynastic power.
British royals have been trying to balance the demands of love, desire, and duty ever since.
The Queen herself has said she remembers meeting Philip for the first time. And here you'd got this tall, blonde, blue-eyed, really good-looking prince. How could any girl fail, really, to be taken by this young man?
With his family driven from their native Greece, a young Prince Philip could offer little in terms of political alliances.
Princess Elizabeth would have liked to have married Philip at the age of 18, but there was some opposition. Partly was his German heritage, and there was also a sense that he was dangerously progressive. He was outspoken.
But this didn't stop Elizabeth from falling head over heels for Philip. And in 1947, they were officially engaged. 34 years later, her heir and eldest son, Charles, was under pressure to find not a political, but a socially acceptable match. He settled on a woman 13 years his junior after just a few months of dating.
I asked Diana before she went to Australia, 2 or 3 days before, because I thought it'd be a good idea that, apart from anything else, if she went to Australia, she could then think about it. And if she didn't like the idea, she could say she didn't, or she did.
Politics and passion aside, a royal engagement is sealed with a ring. The most famous is undoubtedly the bright blue gem presented to Diana in 1981. Today, the striking heirloom adorns the finger of the Duchess of Cambridge.
It's a wonderful Sri Lankan sapphire surrounded by diamonds, and I think it's a way for William and Kate to keep Diana with them, to keep her memory alive.
36 years after his father and 6 years after his brother, in November 2017, Harry, the youngest Windsor prince, proposed to his girlfriend Meghan Markle with an equally beautiful ring.
It happened a few weeks ago, earlier this month, here at our cottage. Just a standard, typical night for us.
It's a cozy night. What were we doing? Just roasting chicken and
Roasting
having...
a chicken. Trying to roast a chicken.
Trying to roast a chicken. And it was just an amazing surprise. It was so sweet and natural and very romantic. He got on one knee.
Once precious jewels adorn the royal bride's finger, it's time to start planning.
Obviously, the palace is a very vast, capable machine that has staged many a royal wedding over the years, and you know, they do what they do incredibly well.
Former Royal Press Secretary Dickie Arbiter has been in the thick of it at many a royal wedding during his time in service to the Crown.
The press office will be sort of running the press side of it, all the information that needs to come out.
Information like the date, the venue, and the all-important guest list.
Guest list is done by the Lord Chamberlain's office. For example, Charles and Diana, when they got married, because he was heir to the throne, there was very much a list of who must come to the wedding. You know, government ministers, foreign heads of state. So there is a must list when it's an heir to the throne.
In 2011, along with their invitations, Kate and William sent out a detailed 22-page guide to their 1900 ceremony guests.
It was just a general guide of additional information, like anyone would send to their guests. Maybe not 22 pages worth, but you might say, this is where we want you to park. Accommodation is available here. But within that, there was some protocol elements that guests needed to know. For example, no mobile phones. This is what the dress code is, and this is what it means. When the Queen arrives, you are expected to stand, bow, or curtsy if appropriate. And timings, when we would like you to be seated by, because the royal family arrived then.
As head of the royal household, the Lord Chamberlain's office is also responsible for the seating plan and setting the strict dress code.
Most guests go down the morning coat, the morning dress route, which is the lovely tailcoat, curve-fronted, striped or grey trousers, double-breasted waistcoat of whatever colour, a nice happy colour, it's a wedding, and a necktie and a turned-down shirt. For the men, for ladies, it's a day dress with a hat and probably a jacket over the day dress as well, tights and closed-toe shoes. It's the most formal daytime dress code that exists in Western society.
But there are still opportunities for guests to get creative.
I suppose royal weddings are an opportunity to really push the boat out when it comes to hats. And I think over the years, certainly the royal weddings that I've covered, I've seen some incredible hats, all sorts of shapes, sizes, colours, creations. I'm thinking of, obviously, Princess Beatrice's wedding day hat for William and Kate's wedding, which was compared from everything from, I think, a pretzel to a loo seat.
The rule, though, as a guest, is don't upstage the bride. Inspired couture designer David Emanuel has been dressing brides for over 30 years.
All brides on their wedding day want to look special.
In the late 1970s, David launched a new fashion brand with his then wife, Elizabeth. They caught the eye of Diana Spencer, who was looking for someone to design her wedding dress. But such an honour comes with some serious pressure.
It's going to be watched possibly by 700 million people. Oh, jeepers. So I think with that, you had to have a sense of humour, and Diana had tons of humour. And it was just the three of us getting on with it, really.
With the press following Diana's every move, David knew he and his team would have to work in absolute secrecy.
The blinds came down. We swore our staff to be discreet, which they were, incredibly discreet, and got on with the job.
As they beavered away at the lavish gown, the Emanuels followed a tradition started by Queen Victoria. In 1840, she tied the knot in this white wedding dress. It has inspired brides the world over ever since.
Up till then, there was lots of coloured wedding gowns, heavy brocade. And suddenly you had this young, fresh queen. And she wanted simplicity. So she'd asked for Spitalfields satin and Honiton lace. Because her dream, I think, was sort of innocence and purity. And she pulled it off. So she started the trend. And you realize ever since then, people have kind of followed that guide. That's why we have white wedding gowns. It's all because of Queen Victoria.
Alongside the beautiful white fabric, there are a few other essentials needed to create a dress fit for a royal bride.
Let's go full-blown. Tons of fabric, lots of petticoats to make it stand out. That's what you want. You could have a train. It depends, it depends what you want. I'm trying to stress to brides, find the silhouette, keep the silhouette. You know the silhouette works.
Meghan Markle demonstrated in 2018 that slim is in when she wore a slender Givenchy gown to her royal wedding.
Just be aware, if you've got a slim dress, you've got to have a back slit at the back to be able to walk, obviously.
Form-fitting to the knee, the flourish of fabric below is a truly modern twist for a royal bride.
At the moment, when I'm consulting with brides, they're all hypnotized on this mermaid. So basically, to me, it's old Hollywood. The only thing I say and I tell every bride, if you wear this dress on your wedding day, remember, if you need to go to the loo, you've got to take the whole thing off.
With so many silhouettes to decide between, it's important to remember one thing.
Royal wedding dresses and fashion never stand still. It moves on. Yes, you can look back at the past and admire and cherish and love past royal brides, but a designer's job is to push it forward. So nothing is static. So you've got to take all these things into consideration.
Diana's dress was of its time, the 1980s, but adorned with 10,000 pearls and embroidered with antique lace, it echoed that of Queen Victoria's over 140 years previously. But the world would have to wait to see the finished article. Weddings are special days the world over, but they are not without their logistical challenges. Yet the work that goes into planning a royal wedding is a step beyond and unlike any other event on the monarchy's calendar.
So from the moment that the engagement is announced and the date is set, it is basically all hands to deck, planning one huge, momentous wedding.
A vital part of any wedding are the flowers. As far back as ancient Rome, flowers have played an integral part in wedding ceremonies, where scented herbs and spices were used to ward off evil spirits.
And at Harry and Meghan's wedding, they had designed an archway of flowers. So when they emerged out of St. George's Chapel after they'd got married, the photo opportunity was absolutely wonderful. I mean, I was in the chapel before. Not only did it smell absolutely beautiful, it looked fantastic.
Creating such a botanical bonanza requires an incredible level of skill and expertise. In 1999, florist extraordinaire Sue Barnes was tasked with creating the flowers for the wedding of His Royal Highness Prince Edward and Sophie Rhys-Jones.
The creations have to be wonderful, have to say something about the couple, and have to be right for the venues. And with the royal family, the venues are huge.
Over 20,000 flowers were used on the day, including Casablanca lilies and Margaret Merrill English garden roses. Despite the scale, Sue wanted to create something that felt intimate for the royal couple.
You went through the rood screen into the main part where the ceremony took place, and there were 10,000 sweet peas in that part alone, and the smell was just incredible.
Sue also had to contend with another logistical challenge.
I have never had to consider, when decorating a cathedral or a church, 32 camera angles before, so that was quite something.
Today, royal weddings are huge global events, live-streamed across the world. But that was not always the case. The first royal wedding to be televised was that of Princess Margaret, the Queen's younger sister, in 1960.
Pomp, pageantry and splendor are revived for this day in austerity-ridden London, a day which the world shares with Britain.
She married Anthony Armstrong Jones at Westminster Abbey. An audience of over 300 million people across the world tuned in to watch the momentous occasion.
Princess Margaret's wedding was groundbreaking. The media coverage of it, it was the first time in 13 years since her sister had married that there was a royal wedding. There were flagpoles flying, white silk banners with Margaret and Tony's initials within Tudor roses, all the way along the route to Westminster Abbey. It was extraordinary. And it was because Princess Margaret was so greatly loved.
This vast number was then eclipsed by the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana in 1981. It is estimated to have been seen by a staggering 750 million people. Key to the success of a royal wedding is choosing the right venue.
Before the 1800s, the royal weddings were traditionally kind of private family occasions. They would take place in the Chapel Royal. And it was really at the turn of the 19th century onwards that we see the royal weddings becoming these big spectacles, these public occasions, which we associate absolutely with the monarchy today.
It depends on where you are in the pecking order. The lower down you are, the less of a big wedding it is.
For the smaller, sort of more intimate weddings, and I say more intimate, still hundreds of people, the more intimate St George's Chapel is perfect for that.
It's a wonderful place, got a wonderful atmosphere and a tremendous sense of history. It's been here for over 900 years and been continuously occupied during all that time.
As well as Prince Edward, most recently in May 2018, Prince Harry married at St George's Chapel, followed by Princess Eugenie in October that year. But since 1100, when King Henry I married Matilda of Scotland, the venue of choice for Britain's first family has been Westminster Abbey in London. This magnificent building can seat 2,000 guests and has played host to 16 royal weddings, including the Queen's in 1947 and most recently, Prince William's. But if you really want to pull out all the stops,
Charles and Diana got married at St Paul's Cathedral because it holds even more people than Westminster Abbey, and there was so much attention on that wedding because Charles was, and still is, the direct heir to the throne.
the night before a royal wedding, an expectant buzz builds around the couple's chosen venue.
The magic of the build-up to a royal wedding, it's really something special. I remember being in London the night before William and Kate got married, and there had been a lovely scene in the Mall because William and Harry had gone out and done some meeting and greeting completely unexpectedly with a load of people that were camped out there overnight with sleeping bags.
The tradition of camping out before a royal wedding is a long-established one for loyal fans, including at the wedding of Prince Margaret in 1960.
Do you have any trouble keeping this area free tomorrow, do you think?
Oh, I don't think so, no. I shouldn't think so anyway.
At the marriage of Princess Anne to Mark Phillips in 1973, a young Chris Warwick wanted to be as close to the action as possible.
We wanted front row place to see the wedding processions and so on. And so we got there in the early hours. It was a very cold November night. But we weren't alone. In those days, you could actually stake your claim right on the curb.
As the crowds are gathering, florists, caterers, bakers, designers, police and press all descend, working around the clock to ensure everything is ready for the big day. But the royal bride sees none of this. She's closeted away to allow her to prepare in relative peace. Kate and Meghan both stayed in exclusive five-star hotels.
Well, traditionally, royal brides spend the night away from their future spouses, and it makes the element of surprise when they meet at the altar all the more lovely. And in Meghan's case, she stayed at Clifton before her wedding night. Kate stayed at the Goring Hotel, a stone's throw from Buckingham Palace, and had a wonderful party with her family, the Middletons, and her closest friends, and a lovely bridal party before her wedding day.
At long last, the morning of the wedding dawns.
Obviously, there's a huge amount of planning that goes into the dress, the makeup, the hair, and goodness knows how frenzied that morning is. I think actually the people that work with Princess Diana say that they had wheeled in a television and Diana's getting ready while the TV is on, reporting what's going on outside, and it must have been really surreal.
A wedding day would not be complete without some last-minute dramas. Disaster struck on the morning of the Queen's nuptials in 1947 when, as she got ready, her tiara snapped.
There was a moment of panic so that they could get the jeweller into the palace to mend the band of this tiara.
The tiara in question started life as a spectacular necklace. In 1893, Queen Victoria purchased it and gave it to Princess Mary on the occasion of her wedding to the future King George V. To this day, the piece can still be worn as a tiara or a necklace.
If you actually look at some of the photographs taken afterwards, particularly one of Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip leaving the Abbey after the wedding, look at the tiara and it's not quite entirely central, but that was a little obstacle that was overcome.
Accessories like the tiara are essential for any royal bride, the most important of which is the bouquet.
This is fairly similar to the size of Kate Middleton's bouquet, for example, and it's a perfectly wired bouquet.
In contrast to the conventional bouquet, a wired bouquet has the thick and cumbersome flower stems removed and replaced by wires.
So if Laura comes over, she can say exactly how she does it. So the wire's inserted into the middle of the stem, and then there's a cross-hatch wire. You bring the two sides down together, and then you secure it with a tape that's called parafilm. And you pull that, you stretch it out, so it's sort of elasticated, and it binds two wires together. And it gives you a stem that's as long, really, as you want it to be.
Using this method, flowers can be tightly fitted into a beautiful, compact display.
If you look at the back, the exquisite finish of this means that there are probably 60 different flower wires on that, which from the front you don't see at all. It's just a perfect shape, whatever that shape is designed to be.
The flowers included in the bouquet should be personal to the bride. But even so, there are traditions to uphold, and a royal bouquet will always have a sprig of myrtle.
Ever since Queen Victoria's bouquet, there has always been some myrtle. In the early days, from the myrtle that was planted at Osborne House, which is where Albert and Victoria lived. The reason being that myrtle is the herb of love, and it stands for love, devotion, and longevity, I think it is.
As the bride makes her final preparations, a nervous groom and his entourage make their way to the church dressed in all their finery.
Grooms at royal weddings, particularly if they are blood members of the royal family, will wear a military uniform. It doesn't always happen. The non-royal grooms that we've had recently, such as Eduardo and Jack, they have been in morning dress when they have married their royal brides.
In 2011, Prince William wore the red tunic of the Colonel of the Irish Guards to his wedding, a position that he had been promoted to just 2 months previously. Bouquet in hand, camera set, guests and groom at the church, it's time to head for the aisle. Hours and minutes before a royal wedding are filled with nervous energy, as the groom and the nation anxiously await the arrival of the bridal procession. As the royal bride slowly makes her way to the venue, thousands of adoring fans line the route to catch a glimpse as she rides past. In 2011, Kate Middleton travelled to Westminster Abbey in the former #1 state Rolls-Royce Phantom 6.
I think for Kate it was important that she arrived at the church in a different manner, and that was in a royal car with her father, which of course gave her that moment in what was otherwise an incredibly public day to have a private moment with her father. So one can only imagine that it was probably a very special, sentimental and happy journey for her.
It has been a tradition for future queens and princesses to arrive in all the pomp and pageantry of a horse-drawn carriage.
Charles and Diana's was a state occasion. Generally, there's just more of everything at a state. There might be more horses or guards in processions. There are more guests. It's a bigger venue. Usually there are potentially bank holidays or extra bank holidays put in because it is a day of the state.
It's never easy keeping a wedding on schedule. From wardrobe malfunctions to traffic jams, getting the bride to the church on time is often a logistical nightmare. Unless, of course, you're marrying into the monarchy. At Harry and Meghan's wedding in 2018, a team of over 3,000 police officers, including snipers and undercover agents, were deployed to ensure the day went without a hitch. With the route safely navigated, it's time. The big moment has arrived. The assembled masses hold their breath, and the bride steps out onto the steps of the church. Whilst the bridal party assembles, broadcasters and commentators across the world begin to describe to the millions watching all-important details of the dress, embargoed until this very moment.
This is not to be reported until the bride has appeared outside St George's Chapel or Westminster Abbey. You'll be then given the dress is by X, Y and Z. It is made of X, Y and Z.
Every girl who picks up a newspaper or magazine or online, they'll get inspired by it and they'll go, I want a dress like that.
The dresses are instant trendsetters, with brides the world over taking fashion cues from the look.
If you look at Princess Margaret's wedding dress, I think it's fascinating because it looked like a Christian Dior dress. It was stunning, but it was actually made by the Royal Couturier, Sir Norman Hartnell. So it harked back to the Queen Mother and the Queen's own wedding dresses.
Meghan did a really good job of kind of subverting a lot of the kind of tradition in wedding dresses because she chose to wear white. And we know that traditionally white is usually for a bride who is the first time she's being married.
Kate's dress, I mean, there was something so sort of classically elegant about it. The lace, it's so demure, but at the same time actually quite sexy because of the whole kind of sweetheart nature of the top, like heart-shaped.
I think that Diana is 100% the original style icon. Her wedding dress was the perfect example of demonstrating that she was not afraid to take risks, that she was not afraid to be unorthodox, to be out of the box in a way. And I think that that level of bravery as a young woman with the whole world watching her every single move really must have been and still is extremely empowering to all women.
As the bride steps into the church, it's a final chance for any little adjustments before she heads down the aisle.
Elizabeth and I were hiding behind the pillars. At a certain given time, we could step in. So we stepped in and zhuzhed. In the fashion world, you zhuzh. You straighten out the veil, you straighten out the frills, you straighten out the train. We zhuzhed away. And then I had the fortune, gave Diana her bouquet, and I whispered a few words to her, and off she glided.
But just what those words were, David isn't sharing. Then begins the long walk down the aisle. At Westminster Abbey, it's 91 metres, as long as a football pitch. Grooms as far back as King Richard II in the 14th century have anxiously watched their brides traverse the length of the magnificent church, which can take 4 minutes.
Sometimes the most important commentary is when you actually shut up and just let the viewer watch what is unfolding. Once you get that moment of walking down the aisle and the music starts playing, actually all that's required is total silence.
Once the bride is down the aisle, the ceremony itself can begin. The original wedding vows can be found in the Book of Common Prayer, which dates back to 1549. Traditionally, a senior member of the Church of England leads the couples through this sacred moment.
I, Charles Philip Arthur George,
take thee, Anne Elizabeth Annis Louise,
to my wedded wife,
for richer, for poorer,
till death us do part.
and thereto I plight thee my troth.
Bless, O Lord, this ring.
Another deeply symbolic and traditional moment at a royal wedding is the exchanging of rings. Since the late Queen Mother's wedding in 1923, all the bride's wedding bands have contained Welsh gold mined in Dolgellau, North Wales.
With this ring I thee wed.
However, no ring at all for the men. Traditionally, royal grooms don't wear a wedding band, apart from a few exceptions.
Prince Harry has worn a wedding ring, a symbol of his breaking away from royal tradition. And Prince Charles, we know, layers his wedding ring on his little finger, on his pinky finger, underneath the gold signet ring that he wears all the time. I think that's a lovely way of keeping tradition and breaking with tradition.
Another custom that began with the Queen Mother in 1923 is the unusual fate of the bridal bouquet after the ceremony.
The protocol or the expectation is that the bride leaves the bouquet on the tomb of the unknown warrior in Westminster Abbey. It was the Queen Mother when she married Prince Albert, as he was then, later George VI. Supposedly something had gone wrong. There was a little sort of a moment where almost she needed to fill or do something, and so she decided to do that as a bit of a, well, I don't know what to do, I'll just do this type of thing. And of course, as with everything, it's become a tradition.
Vows taken and promises made. It's now back down the aisle and into a waiting horse-drawn carriage for that long-anticipated procession through the streets, waving to the massed crowds as husband and wife at last. Every royal wedding is filled with pomp and ceremony, from the military escorts to the traditional Church of England vows. But there's still one moment the crowds are desperate for. In 1981, after Charles and Diana's wedding ceremony, a new tradition was born when, for the very first time, newlyweds kissed on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. To the ecstatic cheers of the crowd below.
I think the kiss on the balcony is the highlight of a royal wedding. I certainly remember at William and Kate's wedding, when there was not one but 2 kisses, the applause from the crowds was just something else. It was thunderous. They just went wild.
Once public duties are over, it's time for the wedding breakfast. This formal function is attended by the Queen and hundreds of VIP guests. It's a chance for the newlyweds to privately share a glass of bubbly with their guests and breathe a sigh of relief.
The after ceremony is always more off limits, and journalistically it's much more challenging because you've got to work even harder to find out what's gone on.
Over the years, a few surprising moments have wound their way into the public domain, including one from the wedding breakfast of Prince Charles and his second wife, Camilla Parker Bowles, in 2005.
a hugely significant moment at Windsor Guildhall, but made even more significant by this speech by the Queen, likening them both to horses taking part in the Grand National and sort of clearing Beecher's Brook and getting to the finish line and acknowledging that it hadn't been easy, but actually they were better together than apart. I mean, it's that kind of detail that you're trying to get, but of course that the royals don't really want you to have, which makes it a challenge.
One part of the formal wedding breakfast the public and the press are party to is the cake. These extravagant creations not only have to wow visually, they also have to abide by the royal adage, best of British.
Princess Anne's had been made by the Army Catering Corps. You know, so there were always kind of links to companies that were used, royal warrant holders, or in Princess Anne's case, there was the military link because Mark was in the army.
It's just as important that a cake tastes as beautiful or as delicious as it is beautiful, because there's absolutely no point in making it in the first place if it doesn't. So I always say neither is more important than the other, they're equal.
Luxury cake maker Fiona Cairns knows just how much work is involved in making a royal wedding cake. In 2011, she was commissioned to make one for the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge's wedding.
The wedding cake was 17 cakes, 17 individual fruit cakes. It was actually 8 tiers and all decorated with different flowers and symbols, and all of these had to be made, all the cakes had to be baked. So we picked a team that we thought was best for putting the cake together.
Fiona and her team are known throughout the UK for their fruitcakes.
If there was to be a dream brief for us as a business, this was it. It really was, because the cake was to be a fruit cake, which is very traditional in royal wedding cakes, up until more recently, Harry and Meghan had a lemon and elderflower sponge cake.
The extensive list of ingredients for a royal fruitcake includes flour, eggs, sugar, as well as spices such as cinnamon and nutmeg. Molasses and an abundance of dried fruits are essential, as is brandy. William and Kate's wedding cake stood over 1 metre high and included 17 different types of sugarwork flowers.
Kate was very interested in the language of flowers, which goes back centuries actually. I think the Romans used the language of flowers idea, but the Victorians popularised it so that many flowers have a meaning. So a rose means love, or ivy, marriage.
Making the delicate icing flowers is a real labour of love.
Here we have a few examples of the flowers that we made for the royal wedding cake. Very appropriate, the acorns and the oak leaves, which is actually the Middleton's coat of arms. And this is Sweet William, Grant Me One Smile. We made quite a few of those. And then the Lily of the Valley, which was so important to the royal wedding, not just to the cake, but was the flower that was used to decorate in the Abbey, and also was the flower that was in Kate's bouquet.
Meaning humility, chastity, purity, and sweetness. Lily of the Valley has been an important flower at many royal weddings. Fiona and her team made over 1,000 delicate icing flowers for the cake, each one patiently crafted by hand.
Do you want to start off, Chandra, by making the Lily of the Valley?
Yep, I can do that first.
Tiniest flower, isn't it?
Start by rolling the flower paste between your fingers. Then start shaping the petals of the flower around a central ball.
What I would say is you just need a huge amount of patience to make these flowers, but it's actually a very therapeutic thing to do. It's a lovely thing to do, actually. Even when you've got to make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, as we do.
Once shaped, skewer onto modelling wire. Repeat the process until you have enough sugar flowers to combine into a single stem. Once all the elements for Will's and Kate's cake had been completed, they were brought to Buckingham Palace. Here, Fiona spent 2 days assembling the epic construction.
As we were finishing it, I remember somebody within Buckingham Palace came to tell me that Her Majesty was coming to visit us. And I thought, oh my goodness. It was so exciting, but it was also, I couldn't quite believe it. She came and she was very charming, but she did know that a door had been removed from the kitchen downstairs because we couldn't get the trolley through, which had the cake on it, without taking the door down. So she said, I hear you've been dismantling my house, which was quite amusing.
Over 600 slices of fruitcake were pre-cut and served to guests at the wedding. But there was still some spare for some very regal wedding favours.
We did make also 4,000 little tins of fruitcake. And that is a tradition that was begun by Queen Victoria. So slices of fruitcake were put into these little tins and they were sent out as gifts from the Duke and Duchess of Cornwall to commemorate the wedding.
As the VIP guests sip champagne and nibble cake, street parties and other revelries are taking place across the nation as the British public celebrate in spirit with royal newlyweds.
Here in Brampton in Cumbria, they've been doing street parties since 1887, so they know how to do them. They put this one on to mark the wedding, and we've got a band, we've got dancing, we've got trestle tables and sandwiches.
And it's not just the UK who are celebrating.
It is the countries and realms within the Commonwealth. It's America. It becomes a global affair.
And each new wedding seems to come with a new tradition. In 2011, Prince Charles lent one of his priceless classic cars to William to drive down the Mall with his new bride.
You couldn't plan at William and Kate's for them coming out in the Aston Martin just outside Buckingham Palace. Nobody knew that was happening, so it's just a lovely surprise.
And the trend has caught on. From the original trendsetter, Queen Victoria, to our future monarch, Prince William, royals have been breaking and creating wedding precedents for centuries.
The monarchy has always had to walk a fine line between continuity and tradition and evolution, and it's changed over time gradually in order to embrace the modern age. But at the same time, it's needed to base its legitimacy really on the fact that it is this age-old institution that's built on centuries of precedent, protocol and tradition.
From historic cathedrals to designer dresses, the royals really know how to combine new ideas with ancient history when it comes to tying the knot. Trend-setting and tradition aside, millions of people all over the world tune in to celebrate these momentous events in all their pomp and ceremony. And as each new generation of royals joins in the bond of holy matrimony, they will likely add their own stamp to the rich tapestry of this most ancient and traditional of ceremonies. When it comes to traveling the globe, the royal family know a thing or two about doing it in style.
What often shows distinctiveness in any grand person is their method of travel. The British royal family has some fairly extraordinary methods.
Alongside official royal tours, the royals travel for pleasure, choosing destinations near.
I remember standing there, almost wanting to cry, saying, Scotland, rain, midges, what am I doing?
And far.
They literally go as far away from the public gaze as possible, with the Seychelles or Mustique or some faraway island.
This is your royal guide to stately travel and how to holiday like Her Majesty. As a member of the royal family, there's a good chance you won't be spending a great deal of time at home. Royal tours to the 4 corners of the globe are all part of the job. Since 2015, the royal family have racked up over 500,000 air miles, many by private jet. So how do they get a break from the day job? Luckily for them, royal tours are not the only reason to go travelling.
For most members of the royal family, with perhaps the exception of the head of state, their holidays are holidays. So it is, like most of us, a relaxing time for them.
There's no limit to their choice of holidays. High-end ski resorts, Crown-owned holiday homes, exclusive tropical islands, and private yachts. So where do the royals like to holiday abroad?
When the royals want to unwind, they literally go as far away from the public gaze as possible. Some faraway island where literally the resort is the island and therefore prying eyes like mine or others can't get anywhere near it.
Another way to keep holidays private and the press at bay is to cut a deal.
There used to be a sense that the press pack could go on the first or second day of a private holiday with royals. They'd pose up for some photographs, do the obligatory family photo, and then tell the press to clear off.
The last few decades, it's been skiing trips that have really personified the royal holidays and have been at the heart of those images of royals, particularly William and Harry as young boys with Charles and Diana on the ski slope.
The princes have enjoyed ski trips since they were small, visiting exclusive resorts such as Lech in Austria and Cloisters in Switzerland. Over the years, they've gained in confidence, both on the slopes and at the press calls.
This photo opportunity was meant to show the 2 young princes in action on the slopes, but they missed their cue.
Like Prince William, he's a keen skier, but seems much more at ease with the cameras and his father in public. The royal oi immediately endearing him to the press pack at Cloisters.
The photographer suggested father give sons a hug.
My arms aren't long enough to get around.
So perhaps William would take the initiative.
Oh, yes, how nice.
Ian, I'm glad to see you've still got the same ski suit you've always had. No change then, yeah, I like that.
Once the press call is over, the royals are left alone to enjoy their holiday, and skiing has an extra appeal.
The great thing about skiing is that you are completely anonymous. You're wearing ski goggles. Very often you've got a mask on. You might be wearing a helmet. Nobody knows who you are. And that anonymity is very, very welcome. You will be able to have a semblance of something like normality.
It's not only winter holidays. The royals are partial to getting away in the summer too. And over the decades, there have been visits to Kenya, Mallorca, Malta, and the Caribbean, to name a few. They're particularly fond of catching up with friends abroad. When their children were young, Charles and Diana regularly stayed with the Spanish royal family.
The Spanish royal family absolutely have the best property in Mallorca, which is saying something. An absolutely glorious island. You know, 1 million of us go there every year. But yeah, if you get a chance to stay with the royals, I would. And yeah, good luck to them. And it's not actually that far from Magaluf. That's the odd thing.
although it's unlikely the royals will be visiting any day soon. Having friends that own their own island is always helpful. In 1979, Richard Branson acquired the 74-acre Necker Island in the Caribbean. By 1990, he had turned it into a luxury resort and invited Princess Diana and her sons.
It was her way of escaping and actually keeping away from the media and being able to have the fun time and do things with the children without having the media intrusion on them. That was important to Diana, and that was an ideal place to go.
But even a private island isn't completely private.
She enjoyed the relaxing time, but she still felt that she was being hounded a little bit by the media. There was cameras in places that she never imagined would be.
Diana wasn't the first royal to seek out luxury and escape on a private island. The royals have connections with another exclusive tropical paradise, the Caribbean island of Mustique.
This is a tiny Caribbean island. It's part of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, so in the Eastern Caribbean, an absolutely lovely area.
The small 1,400-acre island is 100 miles west of Barbados and has been a royal hangout since 1960. Lord Glen Connor, personal friend of Princess Margaret, bought the island in 1958 and planned to grow cotton there. But when that proved unviable, he decided to turn the place into an exclusive holiday destination. Princess Margaret first visited after her wedding to Lord Snowdon. Her friend Lady Glenconner recollects in an interview in 2002.
She came on our honeymoon. That was the first time. Anyway, we hadn't given her a wedding present. And so Colin said, "Ma'am, would you like something wrapped up in a little box? Or would you like a piece of land?" waving his arm rather vaguely around. And she said, "Oh, I'd like a piece of land." We were living literally in a beach house. We had no electric light, no hot water, and nowhere to sit. We were sitting on beach chairs. Anyway, she loved it, absolutely loved it. And we used to go we had picnics every day on a different beach. And that was the start of her love affair, really, with Mustique.
Princess Margaret was gifted 10 acres of land on the island and had a house built, which she named Le Joliot.
And it was a 4-bedroom, single-storey house. The princess saw it described as a villa. A villa, she said. It makes it sound as though it's something you find in Brighton. It wasn't a villa, of course, but it was to her specifications, with a swimming pool, wonderful, wonderful view, and so on and so forth.
Her Mustique villa soon became the place she loved most in the world.
This she would escape to every February and towards the end of the year, around about November, for 3 weeks at a time.
So what was so special about Mustique?
She could be herself. Nobody bothered about her. Nobody recognised her in the early days out there. And then, of course, the house in Mustique was the very first house. It was the only thing she owned, because she obviously didn't own the house at Kensington Palace. And it was hers, and she had great fun buying all the furniture for it and the curtains, and she really loved it.
Margaret visited Mustique dozens of times, but the home was eventually sold by her son in 1999. As well as private islands, the royals have been known to visit well-established holiday destinations, such as Ibiza and southern France. Safaris are popular too. But some holiday destinations are more off the beaten track.
Part of the world that Prince Charles really loves, and Transylvania in Romania. Yes, Dracula country.
The prince himself has traced his lineage to Vlad the Impaler, who ruled the area in the 15th century and is said to be the inspiration for Count Dracula.
I've been out there, it feels quite medieval. You go into these towns and villages and you think, crikey, not much has changed here since the 15th century. He's got 1 or 2 properties going on there. He loves it, and it's a real escape because he's not going to bump into lots of package holiday makers there.
The royals have travelled the globe in search of holiday sanctuaries, from exclusive resorts to remote safaris and private islands. But sometimes the things you seek are much closer to home. For the royals, it's not all about jetting across the globe. Sometimes the best place to escape is right on the doorstep. With a host of private retreats to choose from, the royal family pretty much invented the staycation. The ultimate staycationer is the Queen.
The Queen has always traditionally holidayed in the United Kingdom, and of course she has houses throughout the United Kingdom, and I think it comes down to not wanting to be seen to be ostentatious, even if the holidays are paid for privately, which they would be. Of course that involves royal protection, which is paid for by the taxpayer, and I think the Queen is very mindful of that.
For a UK break, the Queen has the choice of private estates in Norfolk and Scotland. While Sandringham in Norfolk is the favourite for a festive break, the Queen's first choice summer holiday destination is the Scottish Highlands, the Balmoral estate.
The Queen going to Balmoral is the Queen going home. She loves the place.
It's a wonderful place for them just to have some downtime, and I believe the Queen has called it a Highland paradise. And for her, that is her holiday. The Queen's, and I think I could say Prince Charles's perfect holiday, is going to Scotland. They just love it.
She's not the first monarch to fall in love with what Scotland has to offer. Balmoral was first acquired by the family in 1852.
Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, who first of all leased and then purchased and then rebuilt Balmoral Castle, fell in love with Scotland. They spent several months of the year there with their children. It became really a place where they could retreat, where they could relax away from the glare of attention in London. And it became that kind of royal relaxing place that continues today.
The Queen travels to Balmoral Castle for her summer staycation every August. And to greet her at the gates each year is a welcome party, including traditional pipers, soldiers, and even a Shetland pony, the mascot for the Royal Regiment of Scotland. The advantage of a staycation, of course, is that there's no limit to what you can take with you. As well as the corgis, the Queen takes her key staff members to ensure her trip really is home from home.
With Scotland, as the same with other of the royal homes, there is obviously a skeleton staff. There's always people there to run it and to look after it. But of course, staff travel, so the Queen's household will travel.
And former royal chef, Des Sweeney, was no exception.
Working at the palace is like your day-to-day job, where you sort of based. Wherever they went, that could be Balmoral, that could be Windsor, it could be on the Royal Yacht, Sandringham. Basically, wherever they went, we went. You're out in your normal environment. There's a few different people that you haven't met. It's quite fun, you know what I mean?
And with various properties on the estate, other family members come to join the Queen for a Scottish holiday. And they bring their own staff too, like Charles's former butler Grant Harold, who had to get used to the delights of the Scottish summer.
It was raining, it was misty, there was midges, and I fell over, and I fell into a cow. I'll let you imagine what I fell into. And it got slightly covered in it. And I remember kind of standing there, almost wanting to cry, saying, Scotland, rain, midges, what am I doing? And I remember the Prince suddenly was there going, oh, Grant, are you okay? You know, and I was like, oh, yes, you know, I'm fine, you know, suddenly. And because he was kind of smiling, trying obviously not to laugh, it made me suddenly see the funny side of it. So I brushed myself off, and then it was all good. Probably didn't smell so good, but I looked okay.
The Balmoral estate totals 50,000 acres, so there really is a lot on offer. It boasts mountains, forests, lochs and rivers, allowing the royals to enjoy their country pursuits.
They very much do all the traditional pursuits. So you've got the walking, fishing, shooting. The younger royals, I think, enjoy going for like kind of hikes and things. So they enjoy all the kind of things that Balmoral can offer.
One of the more traditional pursuits in Balmoral is shooting.
Historically, the royals have loved to hunt, and so holidays were really about hunting and feasting and disappearing out of the centre and the smog of London to one of the country residences.
From Edward VII to George V, through to the young princes, many of the family have enjoyed Balmoral shoots, so game is often on the menu.
We're going to do a pot roast partridge. We would get the birds on the feather, like so. And then we'd pluck those for hours and hours out the back. Here's what I made earlier. So these are all oven ready now. So I'm just going to split these and then chop them in half. And then just going to remove the backbone. Fry those off, just to give it a bit of colour. So just brown it in a bit of olive oil and a bit of butter. Skin side down first. Seasoned.
Once browned, it gets added to the mirepoix. That's onions, carrots and celery to you and I.
So then you cover that in red wine. Pop that in the oven, 40 minutes. I'll turn it over halfway through and then we're good to go. So this sort of thing they'd like to eat after being out shooting all day. You expect 7 or 8 hours out there, you're hungry. Serve it with some cream swede. Top that with a bit of crisp pancetta. A couple of sprigs of thyme.
A holiday dish fit for a queen. But on some holidays in Balmoral, dinner's not always prepared by the kitchen staff. Sometimes the royals themselves like to get involved. Prince Philip liked to fire up the barbecue.
They were very relaxed up there, so quite often they'd come down, certainly early evening, Prince Philip would come down and we'd be preparing for dinner maybe, and he'd say, okay, we'll have a barbecue tonight. So then we'd have to flip the menu, change everything around, everyone's scrabbling around, find things we could put out. So that was a challenge.
The Queen's love of Balmoral and holidaying in the UK is rubbing off, and the younger royals are now taking a leaf out of her book and looking to holiday closer to home too.
Of course, we've all had more staycations, and we don't see William and Kate do what they very well could, which is jump on a private jet and go to Mustique. They've started holidaying in the Scilly Isles, and they spend extended school holidays in Norfolk. So we are actually seeing them, I think, change the way they holiday. And I think that's because they're very aware that the public are watching, that many members of the public can't afford to go away on holiday, so they're leading by example.
But even if the royals choose to spend their downtime at home, they have plenty of opportunity to see the world, albeit in a very public capacity. As a member of the royal family, you can guarantee one thing: you'll clock up the air miles. After all, it's part of the job.
There isn't an actual job description for a member of the royal family because it's not something you actually apply for. But if there was one, it would just say, do you like to travel? Because that's what you're going to be doing.
The Queen has visited 116 countries during her reign. Most of this travelling has been for official state visits and not an opportunity to relax. The royals have diplomatic duties to carry out, forging and maintaining bonds with countries across the globe on royal tours.
A royal tour is not a holiday. Let's be quite clear about that.
There might, if they're lucky, be a day built in or even an afternoon for relaxation time, but ultimately they are still there, being paid by the taxpayer in Britain to be there and represent the country.
These diplomatic responsibilities are taken very seriously by the Queen, who has made over 260 such visits during her reign. But since 2015, the Queen no longer goes on foreign trips. Instead, her family have taken on more of these foreign duties. Recently, Prince Charles visited 20 countries in just one 12-month period.
I remember working for the Prince. He was doing a trip to New Zealand, and I remember saying to the Prince, have a lovely vacation. And I'm looking at me going, it's not a vacation, it's not a holiday, it's work, you know.
Touring the globe has not always been a royal duty.
In the past, over the centuries, really the royals would go abroad, perhaps to lead an army into battle. Henry VIII went to France, for example. On other occasions, royals would go abroad, perhaps to woo a bride for marriage purposes. But it was only really in relatively modern times that we see royals going on tour.
It kicked off when Queen Victoria sent her son around the world. From North America to Australia, the Middle East and India.
Albert Edward, the Prince of Wales, tours in the 1860s and the 1870s are really the beginning of the modern royal tour. They're absolutely the ancestor of the modern royal tour. These all have a political purpose. They're to establish goodwill, to promote Britain. And Victoria has another reason, I think, for sending her son Bertie away. He's a bit of a ladies' man, he's a bit of a gambler, so it's keep him away from those country house parties where he'll be doing naughty things and send him off as an ambassador.
He exchanged gifts with the leaders he met to help forge diplomatic links.
And thereafter, we've seen royal tours as being incredibly important. First, with royals going to countries where they are also head of state, but also to countries around the world representing the United Kingdom.
But how do they decide where to go?
There's a misconception about royal tours that a member of the royal family puts their hand up and say, oh, I want to go to India. It's nothing like that at all. They don't travel to these foreign countries unless the government says, we want you to go there. And the way that it works, the government feels that they want to do business with a country. Politically, it's right. Diplomatically, it's right. And they feel that the time is right to do business. So we send out our secret weapon of the royal family.
Sending the royals instead of a career diplomat is a sign of respect that hopefully results in a fruitful relationship. But tours are also designed to strengthen the bonds within the Commonwealth. This is a political association of 54 countries headed by the Queen. Of these, she is still the reigning monarch of 15. These include the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, Papua New Guinea, and Grenada.
But the Queen has made it one of her great priorities and achievements to keep the Commonwealth together, united by friendship and peace.
Her children and grandchildren have also taken on this mantle. Prince Charles and Princess Diana famously toured Australia in 1983 on their first state visit as husband and wife. Aged just 22, it was the Princess of Wales' first trip abroad.
She was very nervous about getting things wrong, which was only natural. She was put into the limelight very quickly, and it was a learning process. Charles was there for her, and everybody was around to give her the tools that she needed for the job. Diana was just a people's princess, and everybody took to her, and it was wonderful to see.
Over the course of the trip, the public saw a side to the couple previously hidden.
If I may, on behalf of my wife, thank the Minister and those responsible for this splendid daisy which has been named after her. She is, I know, greatly touched and has never, of course, in her life, ever had occasion to be a wallflower. So...
And Diana, seen as a shy novice, started to gain confidence in her new role.
The royal party had to put on hard hats. The prince's version was not the best of fits, and the spectacle produced an instant reaction from his wife, the giggles.
But navigating foreign lands did come with some peril.
They'd been asked to come dressed casually. He interpreted this as his trusty green blazer, she as a plain tartan dress. This turned out to be a mistake on her part. What the organisers had meant was something far more casual and protective. So the flies and the mosquitoes had a bit of a field day.
As well as the local wildlife, the royals had to navigate tricky politics. Prior to the couple's tour, Australian Prime Minister Bob Hawke suggested the country might be better off as a republic.
Sometimes these trips can be quite diplomatically difficult, and they have to navigate it by sort of showing a great deal of charm.
Demonstrating the importance of these countries to the monarchy is one way.
It's no coincidence that, for instance, the first place that William and Kate decided to visit on tour is Canada, because it's such a significant sort of Commonwealth partner for us. And then again, Harry and Meghan go to Australia as soon as they're married. These are the really big visits that count and are intended to garner very positive publicity and also just put to bed any notion of republicanism.
To make the most of these visits, the royals' days are packed.
They're expecting you to absolutely give maximum face time to as many people as possible. And so therefore, yes, you will be opening something, going to see a great project, sitting down for lunch with some dignitaries, and seeing a performance somewhere in the afternoon. Maybe being a pause while you change to your third outfit of the day. Then it's off to some formal banquet. Crikey. Much as I love travel, much as I love meeting people, I think at the end of one day I'd slightly have lost the will to be king.
Your Royal Highnesses, welcome to the launch of the 2011 Calgary Stampede and to this year's Stampede Parade.
Kate and Will's Canada tour was seen as a great success. But during her 70 years on the throne, Queen Elizabeth visited Commonwealth countries over 200 times. It was her very first tour as a monarch, which she undertook with Prince Philip, that will forever be etched in the memory.
The coronation tour that they did of the Commonwealth from November 53 to May 54 was the most ambitious royal tour that had ever been undertaken.
During their 6 months away, the Queen and Prince Philip covered 44,000 miles by land, sea and air. They visited 13 different countries, starting in Bermuda, then heading east.
So you've got this incredibly glamorous couple, as glamorous as any film stars, at a time when Britain has been impoverished in the Second World War, but is still able massively to punch above its weight. The empire, in effect, soon to be dissolved, still exists, but there's a kind of brilliant disguise going on in which this glamorous couple disguise that transition from the sort of all-powerful Britain of the empire to the less powerful, perhaps more warm-faced and friendly Britain of the Commonwealth.
During the tour, the couple landed in Australia, where they visited 57 different cities and towns and attended 250 formal engagements. An estimated 3/4 of the population turned out to catch a glimpse of the Queen.
This is Dubbo, the royal couple's first glimpse of Australia's rich outback. The local horses find the excitement too much for them.
But all those engagements can put a strain on a young couple's relationship.
A film crew turned up for an appointed time to do a little sort of photo call with them. The camera is set up, and they suddenly see the Duke being expelled from the lodge, and lots of tennis kit being thrown after him, and the Queen is shouting at him. They've obviously had a terrible row. But this is the age of deference, so the crew agree to destroy their film, and nothing more is heard about it for 30, 40 years.
Though non-stop, the young Queen clearly enjoyed her time in Australia and was sad to say goodbye.
In 2 months, they have travelled 4,500 miles by land, 10,000 miles by air, and they have seen and been seen by millions of Australians.
This epic tour would be the first of many for the Queen. But with so much travelling to do, it's important the royals journey in style. The Queen completed much of her coronation tour on board a converted passenger cargo liner, the SS Gothic. But when the tour drew to a close, she was introduced to her brand new specially commissioned and purpose-built vessel, the Royal Yacht Britannia.
The most magnificent ship in the world. It was going to be an ambassador for this country, a home for Her Majesty to travel around the world.
Commissioned in 1952, the Queen's yacht was built by John Brown and Company in Scotland at a cost of over £2 million, nearly 60 million in today's money. She was completed in 1953. Former royal butler William French served on the Britannia from 1984 to 1989.
Every room on Britannia was chosen by Her Majesty and the Duke of Edinburgh, and it was like a country home at sea. It was just beautiful environment to be in, relaxed, calm, and Her Majesty felt so at ease while she was on board the Britannia.
The 126-metre-long ship carried 21 officers and 220 yachtsmen, all personally selected by the commanding officer. They were trained to give orders in sign language and wore trainers to minimise noise in a bid to achieve what was known as unobtrusive excellence and to allow the guests to relax completely.
You would have to be very discreet. You really are in the background as much as you possibly can, because we've got to understand that it's Her Majesty's home, it's her private space.
But although the ship was commissioned for Her Majesty, she wasn't there for its maiden voyage in 1954. But Prince Charles and Princess Anne were.
The little children were slightly hesitant at the gangway, not seeming to know what was expected of them. but it was evident they were both excited by a quite new experience. The Duke of Cornwall and his sister will be in the charge of their governess and nurse.
With the Queen's 6 months tour of the world coming to an end, the children travelled from Portsmouth to Malta to be reunited with their parents. Then, as a family, they sailed to Gibraltar for one last stop before returning home. Once HMY Britannia was launched, she was rarely not in use. In over 40 years of service, she sailed over 1 million nautical miles and completed 968 state visits.
By having the Royal Yacht, because of course many of the places that they were going to were accessible by water, it solved an awful lot of problems because you didn't have to do what now happens with the President of the United States, where you have squadrons of Secret Service locking down somewhere. You just moor the ship in the harbour and that's it. And there you can welcome people aboard, and who doesn't want to be invited on board the Royal Yacht? Who isn't going to sign a valuable contract after that?
But the ship's appeal didn't stop at just official duties.
Britannia would be used for the Queen's holiday. We always went to the Western Isles in Scotland, where many, many members of the family would come and join Her Majesty and the Duke. We would have fun and games and silly little things like putting on a slide on the royal deck, so the royals have a slide to go down with water.
4 royals, Princess Margaret and Anne, and Princes Charles and Andrew, used Britannia for their honeymoons.
Which, in retrospect, maybe were not Britannia's finest hour, because all 4 of the marriages eventually collapsed.
Perhaps the only blips in 44 magnificent years in service. In 1997, she was decommissioned. In need of refurbishment, and with sky-high running costs, the government of the day decided she was no longer cost-effective.
When Britannia was decommissioned in 1997, I think it was one of the very few times that the Queen was seen to shed a tear in public, because it was their floating home. I think they felt a very powerful bond with that ship.
Today, Britannia is a tourist attraction in Edinburgh.
The clocks on the Royal Yacht Britannia, even to this day, are set at just past 3 o'clock. It's the last time the engines and everything was switched off and Her Majesty took her last steps off the Royal Yacht.
However, the Queen and her family still have a special way to tour in style, albeit only around the British Isles.
What often shows distinctiveness in any grand person is their method of travel. The British royal family has some fairly extraordinary methods of travel.
What better than the royal train? Pulled by one of the 3 dedicated Class 67 locomotives, Queen's Messenger, Royal Sovereign and Diamond Jubilee, the 9-carriage train houses multiple bedrooms and bathrooms, and a dining room that seats 12. The royal carriages were last refurbished in the 1970s and 80s.
It's actually a rather old-fashioned train, old-fashioned carriages, and in many ways needs to be updated.
It means hotel rooms and costly security are unnecessary. And with an office on board, it even allows the royals to get some paperwork done en route.
Well, do we think that this is a good idea? Do we know what it's about?
No.
That's a good idea.
It's all right.
It's very worth it.
The first monarch to enjoy the thrill of travelling across her kingdom by train was Queen Victoria in 1842. Delighted by this new mode of transport, she commissioned 2 royal coaches in 1869 to make her journey regal as well as practical.
The only efficient way of getting round her kingdom was to go by train. And luckily, Windsor Castle's got a station adjacent to it, and therefore you leave your castle, you step aboard the train and you go wherever you need to. It's a perfect form of travel from many points of view.
William and Kate most recently used the train in 2020 to travel over 1,200 miles around the country to thank communities and key workers for their efforts during the pandemic. Whether by train, plane or boat, these journeys take a lot of preparation. So what goes into organising a royal trip?
Different members of the royal family will have different attitudes to trips away and what they pack, and some members of the royal family are very particular as to what they wear and how they wear it. And there's a lot of changing of clothing, and it's new outfits almost every quarter of the day, and they could be away for 2 or 3 weeks. They do need a bit of help.
In 2016, during their trip to Canada, William and Kate had an entourage of 12, and Prince Charles is known to travel with a similar number. But it's not just down to the staff who travel with them. The house staff that wave them off have plenty to do too.
How wonderful it would be to have a valet or a lady in waiting. The idea simply being that instead of, oh, right, where's that shirt? Oh, I've got my shorts, where's my sandals, there's the sun cream. Oh no, I'm taking it as cabin baggage, can it go in there? No, you've got somebody doing all of that, to making sure everything is perfectly packed, it's all going to be wonderfully pressed, you've got enough of everything, and that's their job.
Former butler to Prince Charles, Grant Harold knows the importance of neat packing. Here are his tips on making sure your best shirt is perfectly prepared.
When it comes to looking after clothes, it's really important how you fold them, because when you're travelling, space can be a bit of an issue.
Once the shirt is pristinely ironed, it needs to be folded so that the royal can wear it straight from the case.
Place the shirt out like this, and I do up every second button. So obviously the one at the top by the neck, and then 2 down, 2 down, 2 down. Rather than do every single button, it makes it a bit easier when it comes to obviously putting it on. I start off by then facing it that way and opening it all out. Then you're going to bring this piece in to about there. I say round about 1 inch up here I leave as a gap, so round about that, and then make sure it's all kind of pressed down and fold this piece in like that. And repeat on this side. And then you're going to flip that up like that. And then you want to find the point round about here and bring it up to there. And then when the royal actually puts this on, they'll look immaculate in it as well. It's been ironed by myself.
Attention to detail is key when packing for a royal, and there's one item that can never be left off the inventory.
Members of the royal family do have to always travel with a black outfit, black dress, black hat, black gloves, black tie, a very dark suit, in case tragedy strikes.
In February 1952, tragedy did strike. A young Princess Elizabeth in Kenya on a royal tour found out her father, King George VI, had died unexpectedly.
She's only 4 days into the tour, so suddenly she has to come back. Very, very long flight, but they haven't got a black dress. And it's a very solemn moment in which she's going to come down the steps at Heathrow where Churchill is waiting, but there's a bit of a delay while she changes into a black dress. So you couldn't have a more dramatic start to a reign or a more sad start to a reign.
As well as perfectly organised luggage, the royal travellers are given helpful cheat sheets.
Briefing sheet is telling them timings, who you are meeting, who's going to be in the receiving line, if a child is going to present flowers, for example, who that child belongs to, if there's lunch, if they're eating, what the menu is, if they're having to give any sort of speeches.
Botswana is a country very close to my heart. The fact that I spend more time here than at home worries my father a lot.
It might tell them, well, the last time you were at this event, it was 5 years ago, and this is who you met then, and actually you're now meeting that person's son, who now runs the charity, for example, to help them with conversation predominantly, so they can go into events and be relaxed and charming and sprinkle the magic royal pixie dust and do their job whilst everyone else is doing theirs.
From tours to all corners of the globe, to exclusive private holidays, the royals get to visit the best the world has to offer. Few of us have travelled as much or in such luxurious modes of transport. But strip away the splendour, and the Windsors seem to want the same thing out of a holiday as most of us. It's all about having some time to just kick back and relax, at home or abroad, and enjoy an array of outdoor pursuits. But it would help to make friends with some island owners to give your next holiday a little royal flair. The royal regalia of kings and queens